On the 23rd of March, the manuscript continues. Wilcock failed to appear, and inquiries at his quarters revealed that he had been stricken with an obscure sort of fever and taken to the home of his family in Waterman Street. He had cried out in the night, arousing several other artists in the building, and had manifested since then only alternations of unconsciousness and delirium. My uncle at once telephoned the family, and from that time forward kept close watch of the case, calling often at the Thayer Street office of Dr. Tote, whom he learnt to be in charge. The youth's febrile mind apparently was dwelling on strange things, and the doctor shuddered now and then as he spoke of them. They included not only the repetition of what he had formerly dreamed, but touched widely on a gigantic thing, miles high, which walked or lumbered about. At no time of fully describing this object, but occasional frantic words, as repeated by Dr. Tote, convinced the professor that it must be identical with the nameless monstrosity he had sought to depict in his dream sculpture. Reference to the object, the doctor added, was invariably a prelude to the young man's subsidence into lethargy. His temperature, oddly enough, was not greatly above normal, but the whole condition was otherwise such as to suggest true fever rather than mental disorder. On the 2nd of April at 3 p.m, every trace of Wilcock's malady suddenly ceased. He sat upright in bed, astonished to find himself at home and completely ignorant of what had happened in dream or reality since the night of the 22nd of March. Pronounced well by his physician, he returned to his quarters in 3 days, but to Professor Angell he was of no further assistance. All trace of the strange dreaming had vanished with his recovery, and my uncle kept no record of his night thoughts after a week of pointless and irrelevant accounts of thoroughly usual visions. Here the first part of the manuscript ended, but references to certain of its scattered notes gave me much material for thought, as much, in fact, that only the ingrained skepticism then forming my philosophy can account for my continued distrust of the artist. The notes in question were those descriptives of dreams of various persons covering the same period as that in which the youth Wilcock had had his strange visitations. My uncle, it seemed, had quickly instituted a prodigiously far-flung body of inquiries amongst nearly all the friends whom he could question without impertinence, asking for nightly reports of their dreams and the dates of any notable visions from some past time. The reception of his request seemed to have been varied, but he must, at the very least, have received more responses than any ordinary man could handle without a secretary. This original correspondence was not preserved, but his notes formed a thorough and really significant digest. Average people in society and business, New England's traditional salt of the earth, gave an almost completely negative result. Those scattered cases of unusual but formless nocturnal impressions appeared here and there, always between the 23rd of March and the 2nd of April, the period of young Wilcock's delirium. Scientific men were little more affected, though 4 cases of vague descriptions suggested furtive glimpses of strange lands, and in one case there is mention of a dread of something abnormal. It was from the artists and poets that the preeminent answers came, and I know that panic would have broken loose if they had been able to compare notes. As it was, lacking their original letters, I half suspected the compeller of having asked leading questions, or of having edited their correspondence in corroboration of what he had latently resolved to see. That is why I continued to feel that Wilcock's somehow cognizant of the old data which my uncle had possessed, had been imposing on the veteran scientist. These responses from aesthetices told a disturbing tale. On the 28th of February to the 2nd of April, a large proportion of them had dreamed very bizarre things. The intensity of the dreams being measurably the stronger during the period of the sculptor's delirium. Over a fourth of those who reported anything, reporting scenes and half-sounds not unlike those which Wilcock had described, and some of the dreamers confessed acute fear of the gigantic nameless thing visible towards the last. One case which the note describes with emphasis was very sad. The subject, a widely known architect with leanings towards theosophy and occultism, went violently insane on the date of the young Wilcock's seizure and expired several months later after incessant screaming to be saved from some escaped denizen of hell. If my uncle had referred to these cases by name instead of merely by number, I would have attempted some corroboration and personal investigation, but as it was, I succeeded in tracking down only a few. All of these, however, bore out the notes in full. I have often wondered if all the subjects of the professor's questioning had felt as puzzled as did this fraction. It is well that no explanation shall ever reach them. The press cuttings, as I had intimated, touched on cases of panic, mania, and eccentricity during the given period. Professor Engel must have employed a cutting bureau, for the number of extracts was tremendous, and the sources scattered throughout the globe. There was a nocturnal suicide in London, where a lone sleeper had leapt from a window after a shocking cry. Here, likewise, a rambling letter to the editor of a paper in South America, where a fanatic deduces a dire future from visions he had seen. A dispatch from California describes a theosophist colony as donning white robes en masse for some glorious fulfillment, which never arrives, whilst items from India speak guardedly of serious native unrest towards the end of March. Voodoo orgies multiply in Haiti, and African outposts report ominous mutterings. American officers in the Philippines find certain tribes bothersome about this time, and New York policemen are mobbed by hysterical Levantines on the night of the 22nd and the 23rd of March. The west of Ireland, too, is full of wild rumours and legendary, and a fantastic painter named Andros Bonnot hangs a blasphemous dreamscape in the Paris Spring Salon of 1926. So numerous are the recorded troubles in insane asylums that only a miracle can have stopped the medical fraternity from noting strange parallelisms and drawing mystified conclusions. A weird bunch of cuttings all told, and I can, at this date, scarcely envision the callous rationalism with which I set them aside. But I was then convinced that young Wilcock had known of the older matters mentioned by the professor. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please do not thank me. Thank Ada, Molinai, Valmont, Jolly Joe Star, Dark Griever, and all my wonderful and generous patrons, without whom I would not be able to dedicate the resources and time I do to all my channels. I can never thank them enough. I hope you will join me again, but until then, as always, thanks for watching.